Coming up in today's video, we're going to talk about a WWE NXT call up, but it sounds like there's going to be a major change to this one, which I was kind of shocked about. Plus, we got a variety of other news, so make sure you guys stay tuned. And of course, the timestamps are in the description down below. However, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select has previously reported that Sol Ruca was tentatively planned to be in Chicago around the time of Elimination Chamber. The premium live event is obviously scheduled for the 28th of February. Sol Ruca obviously has been killing it in NXT for a while. She just had a really big standout performance in the Royal Rumble. But it appears, according to a new report from WrestleVotes, that Sol Ruca is set for a character change, which includes the introduction of a new theme song, and a number of internal supporters believe her time in the developmental brand has run its course, and a call-up to Raw or SmackDown is coming soon. Now, with that being said, we saw her beat Bayley at Saturday night's main event. We saw her have this really big performance in the Royal Rumble, which has gained an incredible reaction. And we have seen time and time again a storyline in play between her and Zarya in NXT, which, if you guys watched this past week's episode of NXT, then it kind of makes sense as to her being called up to the main roster. Now, with that being said, this is obviously a big deal. Sol Ruca coming to the main roster will probably get a big reaction, especially from the Chicago crowd. But the real question is, what is the long-term play? And I think that is something that we really got to talk about in this video. I think it's well known that Sol Ruca is really talented, but I think we have to kind of talk about the landscape of women's wrestling in WWE right now, because the women's roster is stacked. It's loaded. And quite frankly, the WWE women's roster in today's day and age is honestly really impressive, but I do find it to be somewhat difficult to introduce new women talent because of the fact that there's so many current ongoing storylines. I believe there's so many ongoing storylines and so many things happening that a new woman coming into the mix right away, it kind of puts them in a spot where you kind of have to do the Julia thing all over again. And what I mean by that, if you guys remember, Julia has been on the main roster now for a little bit of time. But with Julia being on the main roster, she hasn't necessarily been pushed. This is kind of like the Bronson Reed way of booking. Remember when Bronson Reed returned to the company? I think that was like 2021, maybe. I can't remember. But you guys remember when he came back to the company. You might have remembered when he was back on TV, like everything was a slow burn. And the idea of it was for WWE to get the audience acclimated to who he is. And it worked out in his favor because he wasn't pushed to the top right away, but he was still relevant on TV. I feel like WWE has kind of done that with Julia, and I'm kind of expecting them to do that with Sol Ruca as well. And there's literally nothing wrong with WWE doing that, by the way. I just think you have to look at the landscape currently as it stands. There's just so much going on, and we are going right into the build of WrestleMania season. Honestly, I would rather much wait for WWE to like get through WrestleMania and then do NXT call-ups, but they've done so many NXT call-ups before WrestleMania this year. I think that's slightly problematic. Obviously, time will tell. We'll see what happens. But with Sol Ruca getting a character change, and they're just going to be making changes altogether, I am curious to see what's going to happen. I hope it's not too much of a big change, just because I feel like with WWE right now, they have this great synergy between NXT and the main roster. And I think sometimes if you change something about that person getting called up, it's problematic. So we'll see what happens, obviously, for sure. All right, let's switch gears and let's talk about WWE doing another international PLE. This is obviously something that I think we've all kind of come to expect. Just the other day, we were talking about WWE going to Italy. Now WWE is planning on bringing Clash of Champions, or excuse me, Clash of Champions, no more. Night of Champions to Saudi Arabia this summer. So let's break it down. Let's switch gears into a topic that I think everybody will be pretty happy with. Scott D'Amore's new promotion, Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, has been really awesome, honestly. I've been enjoying a lot of the stuff that they're doing. And now there's an announcement of a partnership with CMLL. So for those who don't know, this press release came out today, Ontario, Canada, and Mexico City, February 19, 2026. MLP and CMLL have announced a landmark promotional partnership designed to expand their global reach, elevate brand visibility, and deliver world-class professional wrestling events featuring talent from both organizations. The agreement establishes a formal talent exchange that will see MLP promote CMLL stars across Canada, while CMLL will showcase MLP talent throughout Mexico, which they are calling a collaborative effort aimed at strengthening international awareness and driving commercial growth for both promotions. Now, there is a lot more to this press release. You guys could check it out on Maple Leaf's wrestling website. However, the one thing I got to say, and as you guys know, I'm a very big fan of MLP. I'm a very big fan of Scott D'Amore. I have talked very highly of Scott D'Amore for a very, very, very long time. Scott D'Amore has been personally very good to me. So I just want to say this publicly. I love this partnership. I love the idea of working with other companies. We're seeing MLP work with Ring of Honor. It's great. But the only thing I question is who is actually contracted to Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. And that is one of the things that I have a hard time understanding. And I bring that up because you have Giselle Shaw, who is the MLP Women's Champion. You have Josh Alexander, who is also in AEW. But then you also have people like Konosuke Takeshita, who has worked for MLP. You have, just a variety of people, dude. I mean, it's like Santino and Speedball Mike Bailey are technically working there. But are they really contracted to MLP, or like are they just working per appearance? I think that's the only thing that confuses me. That's the only thing that confuses me. You know, Bishop Dyer has been working for Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. I'm just trying to understand, like, are these people that are working for Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, are they actually signed to the company, or are they just working events like a super indie show? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But that's why I find so much fascination with this, because if MLP is really building out that roster and, you know, for example, Bishop Dyer gets to work for MLP because it's based in Canada, but then MLW based in America, like that could be really cool if they're having that, like, hey, when it comes to a Canadian wrestling promotion, this is who you're signed to, but there's non-exclusives. That's cool. But then what does that mean for CMLL, and how does that work with the partnership exchange and talent exchange there? I think that is that's one thing that you just kind of have to think about. But either way, I'm excited to see what happens. I think this is a great partnership in general. Scott D'Amore is a very, very, very he's a very smart guy. He's a very talented guy. He understands what pro wrestling is and what it should be. So I really cheer them on, and I hope this all works out in their favor, honestly. The new report has come from bodyslam.net. They've reported that Night of Champions is currently tentatively scheduled to take place in Saudi Arabia on the 27th of June, 2026. The event is expected to take place in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. This will obviously continue their partnership. Now, keep in mind, WWE just did the Royal Rumble in Riyadh. And then, of course, WWE is doing WrestleMania 43 in Saudi Arabia next year. Now, there was talks of WWE doing more PLEs in Saudi Arabia this year. So I'm definitely not shocked by this news. But Night of Champions will be very interesting. We'll see if WWE does King of the Ring, Queen of the Ring. We don't have confirmation on that just yet, but obviously time will tell. I think WWE at some point will make that announcement. But I'm okay with this. I think WWE PLEs in Saudi Arabia have honestly been pretty enjoyable. The crowd seems to be really into it. And I do believe that every country, you know, realistically, like I think every country should have a wrestling event. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like it like I think WWE and AEW and all of these companies, that they should be bringing their events to as many places as possible. I think the wrestling fans in the world deserve it. One of the things that I often criticize is the fact that WWE is constantly doing Las Vegas now. They're constantly doing the same cities. I would like to see WWE venture off and do more. Do some stuff in Japan. Do some stuff in these smaller countries in Europe. And, you know, look at Latin America. Look at, you know, Africa. Look at different places where logistically you can make it happen. Because if you can logistically make it happen, then you should be doing it, and there's no excuse for it. But I think professional wrestling is a global entity. I think it is something that there is a lot of interest. And I do think You know, if I lived in a country that didn't have access to WWE events, that would suck. You know what I'm saying? I think WWE or AEW or any of these companies being able to bring shows around the world, it's such a great thing. Um, you know, and listen, man, like the world is there's a lot of things happening in people's day-to-day lives where wrestling could be an escape for them. So that's why I've always been a big believer in the fact that WWE should be expanding and going to more places. So I have no problem with that. I do think for WWE, it will be interesting to see how strong this partnership remains with Saudi Arabia. But obviously, you know, they're just making tons of moves. And Night of Champions is no different. I think it was definitely expected. So, and listen, if they're going to pay for WWE events, right, and people are going to go to it, I mean, that's what it's going to be. If you look at it from a different lens, a lot of these countries and their sports authorities, you know, and their local municipalities and things like they're like Australia wanted AEW, they wanted WWE. So there's places in order that will make that happen. And I think for as long as the WWE product is hot, we'll still see that happen. And regardless of the reasons why it happens, I think WWE will continue to do it because it's a big part of their business. So WWE going international more and more, definitely expected. Okay, so you guys know how I've been talking about Bad Bunny coming back to WWE, potentially working with Logan Paul. I've been talking about this for like over a year now, and what's crazy is we keep getting closer and closer and closer and closer to it happening. But a new report came out that WWE remains interested in bringing in Bad Bunny for WrestleMania 42. Now, this report that came out was something that I think a lot of people have kind of expected, right? But basically what has happened here is that WWE has come out, a source from WWE has come out and mentioned that the company would absolutely welcome back Bad Bunny, even if it's for just an appearance and not an in-ring match. Now, mind you, Logan Paul was just doing the podcast for Impulsive, and he was talking about his, you know, him addressing the halftime show with Bad Bunny. Then he goes on to say that this is the greatest pro wrestling match that would ever be put together. Which obviously, you know, Logan Paul is going to gas himself up. But if there's one truth, Logan and Bad Bunny would have a global, like, there would be so much attention on the match, it would be insane. And that's something that you kind of have to keep in mind. Now, with that being said, the plans for WrestleMania 42 aren't finalized. Bad Bunny coming in, you know, supposedly he's going on tour, or he is on tour. Logan Paul's got some stuff going on. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but I think the masked man is Bad Bunny. Not physically Bad Bunny, but it will be revealed to be Bad Bunny. That's what I'm thinking. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm honestly wrong. I don't know. But that's what I'm thinking. So I think that's where we are at with this current situation. I think WWE bringing in Bad Bunny and Logan Paul would probably be the right move. Bad Bunny being revealed as the mystery attacker, good with me. I have no problem with that. Bad Bunny showed us that he's passionate about wrestling. They've showed us that Bad Bunny could actually wrestle. It's not really hard to be a fan of this, you know. But I get it. A lot of people are not going to like it because it's celebrities, and I understand that too. So you just got to be mindful of everything when it comes to that.